Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's your girl Precious Malepo back with another video. As you can see by the title, in this video I'm going to be speaking about the different jobs that I worked during university. I'm going to be ranking those jobs based on experience, based on pay, as well as how demanding they are. I have been receiving a few questions regarding what funding I used in university. Unfortunately, I was unable to secure funding. However, I asked a friend of mine. She obtained an IDC bursary for undergrad as well as her bridging and her postgrad. So if you're interested in that, just do some research on IDC and the bursaries that they have available. Let's jump straight into the video. The first job that I worked was at a pet store. This was my second year in university. I think it was the beginning of the second year. I worked at the pet store. I was a shop assistant, so this basically falls under retail. This is my first job that I worked in university while studying, so I was really excited. It made me feel independent, that I could make my own money. Let's talk about the experience. So my working hours, this pet store that I worked for had working hours that were half day. So I could either work from the morning, which was 8 o'clock until 2, or I could work the second shift, which was 2 until 7 p.m. It helps that this pet store was like right up my road at home, so after work I just walked home, which was awesome. It was really close, so even if like during the winter when 7 p.m. got really dark, slow jog 2 minutes, I was there. I do not recommend this, guys, for safety purposes. We are in South Africa. Working hours were great. I loved the flexibility. If I was writing an exam, I could alternate with somebody else that wasn't working at that time, so they'd fill in for me, and then I'd fill in for them if they wanted to, unless they wanted to make extra money. But usually the case was we alternated, which was awesome. This retail store though had a seat, so it was like there was a desk. So it was a pet store. I sold pet food, not animals. There was a desk that I would sit at, and when somebody walks into the store, I would go up and then I would assist them and ask them what pet food they wanted, how old is their dog or cat, or insert animal name, and then I would recommend like food for them. And if, let's say for example, they have eczema, I would recommend, oh no, you should use this on your dog's skin. So 90% of the time I was seated, which was perfect for me, because while I was seated I could get through some studying, which made sense, and being a student, it made so much sense for me. I don't know if I would be able to cope with retail at the time, standing for those hours instead of sitting. I was also the only one in the store, so there was no micromanagement, which was amazing. So while you sit there, usually everybody else that wasn't studying, they would be scrolling on their phones. But I feel like the added pressure of, oh my gosh, I'm juggling studying as well as working, kind of pushed me in a positive way to utilize every free moment that I had and to study. As a result, in my second year I actually did really well. Responsibilities included giving advice about what animal food for customers that were interested in, like what animal food. I'd recommend animal food. I would also count money. I had to cash up. So while I'm taking the sales, I would scan the item that would be put on the computer, and then at the end of the day, as I sell, I'm actually writing down like, okay, 1 bag of this type of pet food was sold. Then when I print the system report, I need to do reconciliations from the system report to what I had written, and those two need to balance. I also had the responsibility of counting the cash on hand, and I also locked up the shop. Challenges that I faced on this job, I'm trying to think. I don't really think I had any. I genuinely really enjoyed this job. It was simple, it made sense with my studying, like it was perfect. It was the perfect job for a student, and I enjoyed it. How demanding was this pet shop job? It was not demanding at all, in the sense that there was no prep that was required before I did the job, which means that my time was my time. While I was at the pet store, I could do my work sitting there waiting for customers to walk in. Then when I go home, there was nothing related to the job that I had to do in my own time. So on a level of demandingness, it was perfect for a student. And then lastly, the pay. So I think this is the only downfall about this job. So I made at the time, I think around 30 Rand an hour. So this came up to, I think, 2,400 Rand on average. So some months I'll have really good months, obviously, where there's extra weeks or there's public holidays that I worked, or if I worked during a weekend, because obviously the pay rate then is double. So yeah, so on average I made around 2,400 Rand a month. And how did I get this job? I got this pet store job through a friend, so it was a direct referral. Somebody who was already working there was a friend of mine, and she referred me. Job number 2. The next job that I worked was at a dance studio. This was a whole lot of fun. I mean, it was a great conversation starter. I work at a dance studio. So many people thought it was a strip club. Because it was at night and I was a night receptionist for a dance studio. I worked this job, I think, towards my 3rd year, towards the end of my 3rd year. So I actually stayed a really long time at the pet store, and my pet store job as well as this dance studio job ended up overlapping. So there was a period of time where I worked both jobs. The working hours were like 2 hours, 2.5 hours in the evening. So it would start around 6 to 7, and then it would end around 8. So it was so perfect. It was so perfect as well. It didn't overlap with my exams, with my studying, nothing. So everything was done in the day. Also, it was a desk job. So while I sat, I could do my studying, which was amazing. And also the fact that it was only 2 hours was also amazing. Responsibilities, all I had to do was take the register, and I had to take money from clients. So by register, it was basically a dance studio that offered ballroom dance classes, wedding rehearsal classes, hip-hop classes, etc, etc. So a lot of the packages they sold had like you pay 850 and you have 8 lessons, right? So I had to make sure that the customers didn't come more lessons than the 8 lessons, basically. So I had to take a register every week to make sure, okay, they're still within the package, or like now, okay, they've blown the package that they've taken, and yeah, they need to renew the package, basically. So I'll also take funds, so like I'll take the payments from them. What else? On Friday nights, every last Friday of the month, I would work until midnight because there was a social. So all the customers would like come, the members of the dance studio would come at night. There was like an open bar, they would drink, they would dance, and then I was at reception. People were partying and I was at reception, imagine. So those were my responsibilities. Challenges of this job were more on management and just the general management of the job. So like the manager, for example, she didn't pay on time. Yeah, we had to wait a very long time. Like sometimes, let's say our payday was on the 31st. Sometimes the pay would only come in on the 15th, which really sucked. This job was not demanding. There was no pre-work that I needed to do. When I went home, I was at home, so there was nothing to do after I left, which was perfect for a student. And I just had to be there seated. It was more interactive than the pet store job, so I wasn't sitting idle as much as I was at the pet store. So studying wasn't really as proactive as it was when I was at the pet store. So there was a whole lot more people to attend to, if that makes sense. But it was a shorter time that I was there. I was only there for 2 hours, which was awesome. And then let's talk about pay. So this job paid twice the amount of the pet store. So it was 60 Rand an hour. I got the job through Again, and it was actually the exact same friend of mine that got the pet store job. She got an interview for this job. At the time I had a car, so she didn't, and she referred me to that job because I would be able to drive there at night. It wasn't too far from home though, it was like a 5-minute drive. Then let's go to the next job that I worked as a student, and this was as a tutor. So I worked tutoring children, high school kids, not university. And I tutored in geography, English, I think biology, and there was one more, life orientation, and just general coaching and time management. So I was like a coach as well. Don't ask me how, but I was. So yeah, like those were the subjects I tutored. Let's jump into this one. So general experience, I did not enjoy this job at all. Like, okay, I'm gonna get to the ranking at the end, but I did not enjoy tutoring at all. There was a whole lot of micromanagement, like when you go over to the student's house, because we had to actually go there and tutor from their houses. The parents would helicopter around you. They were always there. They were watching you. They were listening on to what you're teaching their children. So yeah, no, I did not enjoy this job. I didn't enjoy it. It was too much pressure. Let's jump into it. Experience. Working hours was pretty flexible. So I would make an appointment with my students. So let's say, for example, when would you like your English lesson? Let's have it every Thursday at 4. Then every Thursday at 4, I would have my lesson. So I would drive to them, have the lesson, and yeah, those were the working hours. So I feel like it was pretty flexible in that I could say, okay, I have lectures from this time to this time. Let's have a lesson at this time. I was required to teach students, high school students, the content. Therefore, I had to make sure that I was sharpened up on the content. So there was a whole lot of self-study, pre-prep, because you need to make sure what your plan is, what your lesson is going to be about. If they ask you any questions, you need to be prepared for that as well. There was a few situations, especially for English, where I had to read a book to prepare for a student. There was poetry that I had to make sure that I'm sharpened on. So the why is the curtain red, that's not based on principle. It goes by poetry to curriculum to curriculum. So I had to make sure before a lesson I was sharpened up on that. Even if I did prep beforehand, and like, let's say for example, prepped a month's work of a lesson, I still had to probably sit for 2 days to prep that month's worth of lessons. The easy part came in, let's say for example, if I had 2 of the same students that needed tutoring for the exact same poem, that was perfect, because then I would just tutor it, and then the thing is fresh in my mind, and then I can go and tutor another student the exact same thing. But yes, very, very demanding. It was challenging in the sense that helicopter parents I feel like want results now, and the fact that the results are out of my control in a way made me very anxious. Like, as much as I do my part, it's also dependent on the student to do their part. So if you get the parent now that measures like the student's progress and the success of the tutoring based on the student's marks and progress, it's very difficult, because it's not only what I put in, it's also what the student puts in. So if the student doesn't also put in what they're meant to put in, then it can look like I'm doing a shitty job. And I understand why the parents had such huge expectations. This particular tutoring company that I was tutoring for charged close to 1,000 Rand an hour for a session. So there was a whole lot of pressure on us, which I did not enjoy. Let's talk about the pay. It paid really well. I think it was 300 Rand an hour plus fuel. So compared to, let's say for example, my 30 Rand an hour, it's a huge jump, but at the same time, there's a whole lot of prep to it. Also, you got paid to read the books that you need to prep for, but I mean, when do you study? So I honestly did not enjoy this job. I did not find it made sense with me being a full-time student. But there's so many students that do tutoring jobs, so I'm not sure, maybe like doing maths where the principles are what they are and they can't be changed would be a bit better than having to do a whole lot of self-study on subjects such as English poetry or literature, or English poetry and literature. I think that requires a whole lot of prep. Maths, long division is long division, guys. Maths tutors have the biggest advantage because it is what it is. Even if you go through different curriculums, I think the only thing would be your method of doing it. But other than that, I feel like everything stays the same. Let's just talk about how I got this job. So I was actually referred to again by a friend of mine that I went to high school with. So he was like on the management of this tutoring company, and he was like, how are you at a pet store and earning 30 rand an hour? Come tutor and get paid like 200-300 rand an hour. And I was skeptical at first, but eventually I went. The next job that I'm going to be talking about is my au pairing job. This was really nice. I really enjoyed au pairing. I built in a relationship with the boys that I was au pairing for, and it was just a nice experience. First of all, let's look at the working hours. So I was required to drop off the children to school in the mornings, right, before school. So I had to wake up around 6 o'clock and get them to school before 7:30. There was no getting them ready, none of that. I just had to be at the gate to get them to school. And then after school, I had to pick them up. They did not like being kept waiting, so I had to make sure I was there on time. Which was so weird because back in when I was in school, I wanted to play around and fool around after school. I didn't want to go home immediately. But anyway, they wanted to leave immediately. So I had to pick them up at around 1:15 or 2:30, depending on the day. Drive them home. Then they get out of their clothes. I have to dish them up food. And then we do homework. So dish up food sometimes because they had a helper who dished up food for them and cooked and whatever. So I just liked to help because I don't know, I felt like I was not doing anything while they were, you know, plus I was eating there as well, so I just wanted to help with that as well. But yeah, so I'd help like dishing up food, and then we'd sit all together, and then we would have lunch, then we'd jump into homework. I mean, they were in grade 2 and 5 at the time, so basic homework, just like the weekly spelling, the reading, the maths homework, the speech preparations, the exam studying when the older boy had exams to prepare for. But chilled, it was really nice. The challenges that I faced was definitely the homework part because they didn't want to do their homework and there was a whole lot of tears. Yeah, that really sucked. And also trying to maintain patience when it came to children, I found that very difficult sometimes. Not a lot of the times, to be honest. Like, I feel like 80% of the time I loved being with them, but 20% of the time there was like those moments where I had no patience. But I'm on the job, I have to be professional, so I can't just snap, you know. That was one of the challenges. The second challenge was the fact that I drove them to school, sometimes even drove home, then I'd have to come pick them up again. There was that petrol cost. That was a big challenge, to the point where I started even taking my study material with me when I dropped them to school. Then I'd find like a cafe close by and I'd sit at the cafe and study from there, and then I would drive home with them. So yeah, that was challenging. But if one day I didn't have cafe money, then I would like sit in my car and do studying. And in the summer, when you sit in your car, listen, you'll feel sleepy. It's hot in there, you'll feel sleepy. You can't necessarily keep your windows open all the time for safety reasons, wherever you decide to wait. And you just feel sleepy, you want to sleep, and it's not nice. But then again, to drive, because it was quite a drive, I think it was 30 kilometers away from my house. Base course 30 kilometers away from my house. So that's a lot of petrol. Demandingness, it wasn't as demanding as the tutoring, because that required like proper knowledge, and it required proper like literature preparation, etc. This was grade 2 and grade 5 work, so literally I can read it and be prepared. Like, I just need to help him read the words, I need to help him memorize his speech, I need to help with math sums. So it was not as demanding as the tutoring, which was great. But I still had to make sure that I had some sort of structure. So I had to have like a diary, stuff they struggle with. I need to make sure that I incorporate more of that in their routine so that I can sharpen their weak points. Yeah, there was just that element of I can't be selfish, these are people's lives, like this is their future. I can't be lazy on the job, if that makes sense, because it's going to directly impact them. So I had to make sure if I saw something that was lacking, I step up and I put an effort to work on it. See how to get the job again through a friend, so direct referral. Let's talk about pay. So I made 7,800 rand on this job, which was great for a student, but this 7,800 included petrol, and yeah, so I had to balance out how much is going to fuel and how much is what do you call it, is mine. So now in hindsight, I don't know if the cost of living has risen now, but I do feel like it was a little bit small. But then again, like, what does the family have to give to an au pair? You know what I mean? Like, how much extra do you have? Another challenge just on the pay that I faced was basically if I wasn't like let's say on school holidays where there's no transportation happening, just dealing with that, because if there's no transportation happening and there's a helper at home, then there was nothing for me to do during school holidays, and paying me would not make sense, if that makes sense. Like, why would I get paid if I'm not working? So there were times where I had to like plan out, like, you know, be like save my money so that if I don't get paid for the school holiday or for these 3 weeks, I'm fine. So that was one of the challenges I faced. So I got paid in advance. So at the beginning of Jan, I'd get the money, then I'd work Jan, get the money for Feb, then I'd work Feb. So then we come to December. So November, beginning of November, I'm getting paid, I'm working in November. But now beginning of December, the most important month of the year, I'm not getting paid because, you know. So yeah, that sucked. Like, you working throughout the whole year. Yes, obviously I saved because I had my car installment to pay, so I made sure like I had some savings in place so that come December I'm able to pay for my car. But like, I want to live my best life in December and there's no salary coming in, so that really sucked. On some school holidays though, I did get paid for working, and my work was like go to the cinema with them, watch a movie, go to Gold Reef City with them, watch a movie, and I'll still get paid for it. That was awesome. Yeah, but I had to like incorporate like an hour, because the school holidays would be like an hour of revision, not as much as like a normal school day. But yeah, then going on to the last job I did in university was actually my own business. So I started a transport company with a friend of mine. Yeah, did I not see flames? Business is not easy, guys. Wow. Anyway, I started my own business with a friend of mine. So it was a school shuttle business. She had the idea. This was a childhood friend, so we grew up. So again, the referral. But anyway, so basically she had the idea. She worked for somebody who had a business structure model of employing drivers who had their own cars and getting them to do like the trips. So we basically did the same thing, but we tweaked it in a way that we only hired female drivers, because we capitalized on that safety element. And we also only targeted private schools, because we only have private cars. So these drivers, obviously if they're using their own cars, they don't have quantums, etc. So we can't now make money on the quantity of the students, so we'd have to make money on like the price basically. So yeah, so we'd go to private schools and we would charge like quite a lot. Let's talk experience. So working hours 24/7. You can get a message at like 11 p.m. You have to deal with it. You can get a message at 4 a.m. in the morning. You have to deal with it. It was completely unpredictable, so I don't think I can give working hours. But I must say, once the last student is dropped off and the parent comes home, so around 6 o'clock, then I would relax. Before then, I would not relax. I would be on like anxious, like, is the parent okay with the time the student came home? Am I gonna get a complaint from the parent? You know, if there's some sort of delay or something, then after, like, the parent would come home approximately, I'd be like, okay, no, the parent comes home around 6. After 6, if I don't get any messages or calls, then I relax. But then again, after 6, you'd get customer queries and they would ask you, hi, how much is your transport from this place to this place, etc. So working hours, I don't think I can give it a working hours. It was 24/7, guys. 24/7. Let's look at responsibility. So the responsibilities of this was basically the management of it, the accounting of it, the driving at certain times. So I had to actually step in and transport school kids when the drivers weren't able to come, whether they were sick or they just didn't want to come. Oh, it was stressful. Like, if they just didn't pitch, I had to step in. Also had to recruit new customers. What else? It was a lot. Advertising, making sure that's rolling. Yeah, those were my responsibilities. The challenges I faced were many challenges. I had challenges with my business partner. We actually don't speak anymore, unfortunately. I see why they say you don't mix business with pleasure. So we don't speak anymore. We had a fallout because of the business. But you know what? We grew up together. So I am positive that our paths will cross, and that in hindsight, wherever we do pass in the future, it will seem very small, right? It will seem small and like, no big deal, we overreacted. The challenges I faced was, that working with someone, managing a company with someone is very difficult because you both have different ideas of how you want it to look. You both have different limits and boundaries to how much you want to pour into this business. You're just both very different people, and you're bringing the two together. It's not easy. Like, you're different, you're gonna clash, you know what I mean? So yeah, that was definitely a challenge. The next challenge I faced was definitely retaining staff. Retaining drivers was the biggest challenge of this business, because basically you're transporting people's children, so they expect the same driver to be there all the time. And if it's not the same driver, there's a safety risk, because it could mean that one day you change a driver, or some stranger comes up to the child and says, hi, I'm your new driver, and the child is kidnapped. So now I had the struggle of trying to retain drivers and keeping parents at ease in the cases where I wasn't able to keep the same drivers. You can imagine it was tough. In terms of demandingness and preparingness, like having to prepare for it, it was extremely demanding, I won't even lie. It was very demanding, to the point where my second attempt of CTA, I was like, let's put this to an end, I need to focus. So you guys, those were the 5 jobs that I worked in university. Now time to rank them. The job that I would put in place holder number 1 being the greatest out of all 5 of those, would have to be au pairing. Au pairing was perfect for me. It wasn't too demanding. The kids were still small. The parent of the children was understanding, like in terms of disciplining. Like, they weren't spoiled, which was amazing. So if I said, hey, don't you dare, then they're like, daddy, she said don't you dare. He'll be like, Vele, don't you dare, which is awesome. Like, there was no, like, we were on the same page, which helped a whole lot. In second place, I would rank my self-employed job, so my transport company. I learned a whole lot, guys. It was such an amazing learning opportunity. In third place, I would put my pet store job. Yes, I'd put my pet store job. As much as there was no growth opportunity, it was calm. It was calm. It made sense at that point in my life. It was a safety blanket, and everything was predictable, and sometimes that's okay. In fourth place, I would put the night receptionist dance studio job. It was all over the place. It was all over the place. There was no structure, guys, please. But I feel like with a bit of structure on the part of management, it might have ranked a bit higher. But yeah, it was all over the place. It's definitely 4th place. And lastly, in 5th place, the worst job was tutoring. I didn't like it. It's my last job. I don't like it, and it belongs to the very bottom. Anyway, that is the end of my list. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. I hope this video actually helped you with ideas on what kind of jobs to apply while being a student, or what side jobs you can do, or I don't know if it was just insightful for you, or if you just want to make extra money as a student. I hope it helped and gave you some information regarding that. Don't forget to like and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.